Law Commission Work Group on Remote Notarization. I'm Mark Comstock here in the room. To my right is Sandy, who's in charge of everything. And around the room we have, let's introduce you.
I'm Amy Zepka with the Oregon State Bar. Liz Basemeyer with Good Law. Renee Alberti with Notary.
Heather Gilmore, I'm an attorney in the fire department.
Sam Dupree, Oregon Judicial Department.
Jamie Weddle, Oregon Secretary of State.
Great.
And we have quite a few people on the phone. I'm seeing actually 13 people on the phone. So we'll try to get everyone. So if just everyone who's on the phone, if I don't know the best way to do it, but I'll take down the names as we go.
I'll jump in. This is Nick Regario, Director of Operations for Nexus Technologies.
Jonathan Malinga, Product Manager, Nexus Technologies.
Cleve Abbey,
Council.
Cleve Abbey, Oregon Land Title Association.
Thank you, Cleve.
Pat Inat, Oregon Land Title, and the Fidelity Group of Title Companies.
Thanks, Pat.
David Curtis, Northwest Credit Union Association.
Thank you, David.
Justin Scorza for. Go ahead,
Go
Craig.
ahead, Justin. No, you go ahead, Justin.
All right, Justin Scorza and Craig Trummel from First American Title Insurance Company.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ken Sherman, Oregon Bankers.
Thank you, Ken.
Cindy Gwinnell, First American Title Insurance Company.
Thank you, Cindy.
Felicia Canfield, First American Title Insurance Company.
Thank you, Felicia.
Did you hear me, Marisa, from Legislative Council?
Marisa, thank you.
Oh, sorry, I said it twice.
Nope. Anyone else who's on the phone or video who has not been identified?
Yes, this is Tim Reiniger in Maine.
Tim, nice to talk to you again.
Sure. Good morning, Sandy, everybody.
Good morning.
Morning.
So one quick item, if anyone on the phone, I did send along with the phone a video, a link that you can participate by audio or video on the computer. We are going to do another demonstration coming up pretty soon. So if anyone who is currently on the phone would want to use the link and wants to participate and see the demonstration on their own computer, that is available if you click the link that I sent out along with the scheduling with the agenda. So just FYI on that.
And since well, let's do a brief review of our May 28th meeting, just to kind of familiarize where we are. We had a demonstration from Notarize, I believe, that went real well to explain kind of what we're thinking about here, and we're going to have another demonstration today. We also took a straw poll, if you will, of what the work group's preferences were about the whether it was going forward with the RULONA draft legislation or the land title draft legislation, and I think it was unanimous or a consensus anyway that since Oregon has previously had the RULONA legislation, that we're looking at the RULONA amendment language, and we all I think we're moving forward to start talking about drafting and actually getting to a proposed bill and maybe looking at how it would fit with our existing statutes and maybe some additional protections and some interesting tidbits of Oregon law that might be addressed. So my thought today was to do the demonstration from Quicken Loans, Liz Facemeyer's group, so we can jump into that and see what's out there.
All right, so the folks who are doing the demonstration, is there anything that I need to do to help out?
Nope, we're just getting our bearings set right now, and just give us 30 seconds and we'll do a quick intro and then start screen sharing and we'll be ready to rock and roll.
And for those of you who are not on with video capacity, I mean, we'll certainly talk through things. We will have a discussion about drafting and next steps afterwards, so feel free to hang on and listen or call back when you need to. Yes. There's not, unfortunately. I apologize. I did everything I could. It's
All right, so we're gonna start sharing our screen right now. Let's see, Zoom. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna show two sides, right? Because there's a notary side and there's a client side. And my name's Nick Regario. I'll be the notary for this closing, and then Jonathan, or I'll be the client, I'm sorry, for this closing, and Jonathan will be the notary for this closing. And then what we'll do is I, as the client, will log in first, and then we'll flip sides. We'll show Jonathan logging in, and then we'll show the actual signing ceremony. Okay. And then what you guys will see is you guys will see a full remote online notarization demonstration. So we'll be showing you the full run. Another thing is that I just wanted to point out is Quicken Loans is a client of ours, Nexus ClearSign. So yes, you'll be seeing Quicken Loan software, but the software is Nexus ClearSign, and we're definitely a provider for Quicken Loans. We love Quicken Loans. We are also out in the market and can provide services for really anybody in the market. Just wanted to point that out. Okay. So without any further ado, I'm going to hop right in. Feel free to ask any questions as we progress. So what I'm doing right now is I as the client, have received a link through my lender, through a settlement agent. There's many different ways where I might have received a link, but I've received a link through email or any type of different medium, and I've clicked on the link. I've been taken to this screen, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit my start button to start the session. The very first thing that I'm prompted with is a terms of use. So I'm going to read through our terms of use policy, and I'm going to agree to the terms of use. Next is privacy policy. Similar thing, I'm going to read through our privacy policy. I'm going to agree to the privacy policy. The very next step is an audio video check. So this is, as you can see, we have two screens here. We have the screen on the left that's showing the video. I can see myself, so that's working. We got the screen to the right, which has this bar that's oscillating, so you can see that my microphone's working. So I will attest that my audio video is working, and I will proceed. So next is a step that we'll explain a little bit more, and we won't show the exact steps of it. We will talk about it because for demo purposes, we don't have live information. But what happens is at this step, we are now prompting the client to grab their mobile device and go to appsdemo.nexustech.com. When they go to that site, what will happen is they'll be prompted to download an app. When they download an app, it's a Nexus ClearSign app. There's a quick few screens, a series of instructions that will get them to start. And what happens is they're prompted to take a picture of this QR code. When they take a picture of this QR code, the session on their phone is now linked to the session on the computer. And then the very next step that happens is the mobile app will ask the client to take a picture front and back of their ID. Because the two sessions have already been linked, as soon as those photos are taken of the front and back of the ID, those photos are uploaded directly into ClearSign, and those will be presented to the notary. So when we flip over to Jonathan, he shows you the notary steps. You guys will see what the notary is seeing when they're approving these credentials. So remember, yep, go ahead.
A question, do you need to have two devices to be able to do a remote notarization?
So yeah, we require that you are on a computer for the session and that you have a mobile device to upload your credentials. So there is two devices needed.
So we do this purposely based on the fact that your mobile device most probably is newer than your laptop. And when it comes to capturing the image of your driver's license, both the front and particularly the barcode on the back, There's much higher success rates with mobile devices than they are with laptop web cameras.
Yeah, you also want to talk about the offshore thing.
Yeah. So as we were shopping for our credential analysis provider, we were trying to keep everything on the laptop using that webcam. But what we discovered is a number of the vendors that are using webcam for validation, they're not doing so through a true electronic process. They basically are sending images of the consumer's credentials overseas, and literally someone is comparing that information or that license image versus like another license. So just considering that we're in the financial industry and with all of the concerns around protecting consumer information, we definitely decided not to go in that direction, and that's why we're like driving towards this mobile solution.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So we'll submit through this, and then the second form of verification that a client will go through is knowledge-based questions. Probably a lot of the stuff you'll see is very similar to probably previous demos you've seen, but these are referred to as out-of-wallet questions. These will be a lot of public records data. If you've ever opened up a line of credit, you've probably seen these type of questions. There'll be 5 questions. You have to answer 4 out of the 5 questions correctly, and you have a 2-minute time limit to do so. If you're not successful in the first attempt, then you do get a second attempt, and again, it's 4 out of 5 correct within 2 minutes. All right. For demo purposes, we're just going to choose the last answer here. And then the very next step that I'm, as the client, taken to is to create my signatures. We have a couple different ways. You can do a typed signature or you can do a drawn signature. Drawn signature is pretty self-explanatory. I can draw out my signature. We prefer the typed signature. There's a little bit more validation involved with the typed signature. So for the typed signature, you can see underneath the signature box, there's a Troy Astor. So that this name appears exactly as it is on the mortgage document. So this was passed in this format to us. So we put validation to make sure that we are or the client is typing the name exactly as it needs to appear on the documents. If I was to make an error and add an extra letter or have a typo, then I get an error message that says the signature name must match exact. I will then create my initials. I will agree to the consent of electronic records. And I am now in the lobby. So what you see here, it's the lobby page. You can see that me, the client, Troy Astor, I'm in the lobby. I'm waiting for Nancy Notary, who's the other participant in this closing. You can see that at the bottom of that box, we're waiting for Nancy to join the session. She's been sitting there for 7 minutes. So what we'll do now is we're going to flip over to Jonathan, who's going to show you the notary process. A lot of it's going to look the exact same as what you guys saw. There's a lot of steps that are the exact same. There are a few differences, which Jonathan will point out. Once he gets signed in, he'll also show you the approval of the credentials that I just sent through, and then we'll come together in the signing session and sign some documents, and then we'll flip back and forth a couple times within that. All right, so I will stop sharing. Jonathan will take the screen and talk you guys through the notary side.
All right, can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Yes.
All right. So as Nick stated, a lot of the notaries, some of the notary experience is the exact same thing you saw on the consumer end. So as we kind of open this up, the notary has to agree to terms of use plus the privacy policy. They'll go through the same audio video check that the consumer went through. And then we come to our first unique screen, which is signing, agent, acknowledgement, and location. So as we know, there are, the regulatory environment with remote online notarization is changing weekly. So with certain states have strict regulations where the notary that's engaging in the transaction must be a notary in that particular state. So what we've done here is basically, today we have a Virginia sample order. So we basically loaded all of the Virginia counties into our table, and they're basically asking the notary to confirm that in in this particular transaction, where in the Commonwealth of Virginia are you sitting? So we'll go ahead and attest and then continue on. And then we come to signature creation. As Nick pointed out, there's two ways to create signatures, either typed or holographic. In this case, the notary must create their signature in the exact same format as it appears on their commission. One other thing to point out is a sample of our notary stamp is uploaded previously to the session, and so they're going to get that image presented to them. And then finally, they're going to consent to the use of electronic records and signatures during the clear signing ceremony. All right. So now that we're both checked in, we'll go ahead and look at one of the last stages, which is basically signer verification. So ClearSign has the philosophy of wanting to provide tools to the notary to make better decisions, as opposed to providing tools that are going to make decisions on behalf of the notary. In that spirit, we basically are presenting all of the KBA and credential analysis information that the consumer has gone through in a way that protects their privacy. So you'll see right here that this is where the images of the front and back of the driver's license would appear. The information that's taken off the barcode is displayed here for the notary to compare directly against the information that's coming from the lender. If there were any notes from our credential analysis provider with the validity of the driver's license, they would appear here. Some common things that we bump up against is, in certain states, when you do a change of address, you don't always get a new driver's license. You get a sticker to place on top of your license. Things like that.
Oregon is actually like.
Okay, so
Oregon does do that.
So in this case, you know, that will appear to the credential analysis provider's algorithms that there's some kind of edit that's happening with the license. Rather than, you know, kind of bomb that client out of the experience, the notary can simply ask the question, what is your current address? And, you know, the consumer can kind of explain why. Other common errors you see are with, like, let's say, organ donation stickers that appear on the back of the driver's license, are also kind of like common things you run into. So now that I've approved all of the consumer's credentials, see that they've passed the KBAs, I'm going to go ahead and approve.
And do we want to talk about the talking head? So we have started the recording of the talking heads. So you guys see the talking heads on the right. When the talking heads are brought together, a recording started of just the talking heads. So we don't record any of the documentation due to privacy concerns. So none of the documentation is recorded, but we do have, or none of the documentation is recorded, but the two talking heads. So myself and Jonathan are recorded, and then we'll store that video and then provide it to the, provide it at the end, and you guys will see that process. Okay.
Before we move on, you've used a driver's license as your ID. Are there other types of ID that are available in your program for someone to verify their identity?
Today, driver's licenses and state IDs are available. We don't do military IDs and we don't do passports today, just because there's, like, in order for a passport to be legitimate, you have to sign it. And there's no way for our provider to enforce that the passport's been signed.
All right. Then on the driver's license, is it only a currently valid driver's license, or would it be acceptable to have, well, in Oregon, a learner's permit, if you will, or an ID card not allowing for a driving privilege?
Yeah, a state ID would go through. I'm not familiar with the format of your learner's permit, but I have to see it in order to answer that question.
Okay, okay.
So outside of their solution, other solutions can accept passports as well as state IDs, depending on whether the law allows an expired license or not. We would allow an expired license. Often states allow up to 3 years expired.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So as we come to our first document, a couple things to point out. Navigation through the document is shared at the same time by both the consumer and the notary. So if I hold my hands up and Nick scrolls, you can see the document scrolling on my screen. As we kind of go through the document, a couple things to point out. In order to get to signing locations, the notary and the consumer have to actually navigate through the entire document. We purposely do not allow for what we call snap to sign, which would be kind of like zooming to the first signing location. We want to make sure that both parties are basically navigating through each document, and the consumer has the opportunity to ask questions about any of the data that's on the document. So in this case, Nick just clicked to sign, and you can see on my side of the transaction that the signature appears immediately. And then you can also see that on the top here, on our URLA, there's two actions that are required. The first has been completed. As we move through, as I hover over the next signature box, you can see that even though there's an action on this document, it does not belong to our notary. The notary can't sign on behalf of the consumer. They can basically witness the signing of the document. So as Nick clicks again on the second signature box, you can see it's immediately applied, and then we get visual verification that all of our endorsement requirements on this first document have been completed. Navigation can occur through the package one of two ways. First is either through this drop-down, or by hitting the next or previous buttons at the top of the screen. So as we go through our second document, which is our 4506T, we see another required action, which is basically a checkbox. Basically, this is to give authorization for a transcript of taxes.
I'll flip back now so you can see what else. Yeah. So what I'm seeing on my side, you guys saw Jonathan has a dotted orange box you can't do anything with. On my side, there's a big blue box that says sign here. So we'll stop sharing Jonathan's side. We'll click over to my side, the client. Again, I'll show you guys a couple of documents that the way that I see them, and then we will finish with Jonathan's screen. All right, so let me know when you all are with me.
Yeah, we see you.
All right, so like Jonathan said, here on the 4506T, there's a checkbox. So not only do we do signatures, we do any endorsement types, which you guys will get with any competitor really. We have the sign here, Troy Astor. So, and again, up top, you have the complete button. So we know that we have taken all necessary actions. Move this. We'll hit next, and now we're to the note, and there's some special stuff in this note. Jonathan does a great job explaining it. So again, today, Jonathan takes away on what's going on with the note.
Yep, so basically this is a MISMO smart document, and basically what all that means is there's a series of security features around this document. This is the promissory note that would actually go to the eventual investor on the transaction. So basically, once this document is signed and we click to the next screen, there's a tamper seal that's applied around this document, and there's actually an audit log that follows this document through its life cycle. So as it's moving to the lender's vault, as it's moving on to MERS, and then on to the eventual investor.
So we're moving on to the deed of trust, which is the last document in our package. And what you'll notice is that we're doing a lot of scrolling. Did you mention this already? Yep. Oh, you already mentioned it. Perfect. So this is just reiterating what Jonathan mentioned earlier on the demo, that we do not do a snap to sign. So you do have to scroll all the way down to the signature box. I will sign here. And as you can see, there's additional signatures needed here. They are notary signatures and a notary stamp. I, as the client, cannot take the action because I should not be able to take the action just like a regular paper closing. Another thing of importance that we want to talk about is the order of operations within this document. So I, as the client, just like in a paper closing, have to apply my signature prior to the notary applying their signature, prior to them then applying their stamp. So the order of operations is that I, as the client, apply my signature, the notary makes their signature, and then they apply their stamp. And that's the exact same way the order of operations must go in this document. So I will flip back over, and then we'll show you Jonathan notarizing this document and what that process looks like. Any questions while we're getting back to Jonathan's screen?
Just an equipment kind of question.
Mm-hmm.
You said a computer and a mobile device. Could this occur, say, a tablet and and an iPhone. Is that workable for this system?
So
Good question.
today, we are restricting the platform to, for RON closings to actual desktops or laptops. And that's basically at the request of a lot of the title underwriters that we're working with. They're not quite ready to see consumers doing RON transactions on their mobile devices. And that really comes down to the readability of the documents. But yes, like from a system standpoint, we could deploy this on mobile, whether it be a tablet or a cell phone. It really comes down to our partnerships with those title underwriters. Once they're really like comfortable with that idea, we'd be able to implement that quickly.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so as you see here, on the notary's perspective, I get the sign here button, but there's an extra step for me, which is basically to enter in a password. Essentially, when you're using, as a notary, when you're using ClearSign, you need to establish a security certificate with a third-party provider. And basically what that does is ensures that the notary is always under exclusive control of their credentials and their commission information. So this password is not stored by our system. It's established independently with that third-party certificate provider. And essentially what we're doing right now is actually reaching out to that provider's service to determine whether or not this password is legitimate. Once we get the green light and the signature is applied quickly, and it's the same process for the stamp. So from the notary point of view, this is like a really great security feature for them to ensure that their commission would never be used without their specific password. As long as they're keeping good password control policies, they can have that surety 100%. All right. So now that we've completed all the documents in our demo package, on the notary point of view, we get this complete closing button to appear. Because the notary is really driving the ceremony, they solely have the ability to complete the closing. We don't give that ability to the consumer. However, at any point in time, if either the consumer or the notary feels uncomfortable with the transaction, they can click this cancel closing button in the upper right-hand corner. And this basically gives them the ability to kind of like get up and walk away from our virtual signing table.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have noticed it, but that has been persistent throughout the entire closing, and it was also there for me as a client, so I had the same option to do that.
All right. So I'll go ahead and...
Excuse me. On the cancel, so I'm sorry, it's very difficult for those of us who are in the room to see the screen because the print is so tiny. So where is the cancel the transaction icon?
Right here in the upper right-hand corner.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's just for you. It's covered by a Zoom feature right now, but if it was a full screen, it would be there.
So if I'm an elderly woman and I'm uncomfortable, I can just hit the green button, and then what would I expect next?
You basically get a modal to say, are you sure you want to cancel the closing? Click yes, and then basically the closing would be canceled.
And so then it would just be like closing a screen on my computer, is that right?
Yeah, it essentially end this session with the notary.
Okay. And then if I'm the notary and I have an elderly woman on the screen who appears to be confused and not able to do any of the things without substantial assistance,
I can do the same thing. I can decide that I don't feel that this consumer can basically navigate through the closing package without assistance. If there was not the ability to bring someone into the session to assist them, they could cancel the closing as well.
Yeah, so Jonathan hit on a really good point there, which is if there's not the ability to bring someone in the session. So we're developing a feature right now called the observer feature. So right now we see the notary and the client, but if we wanted to invite an attorney or a realtor or really anybody to help somebody with the closing, we are going to introduce a feature called the observer role, where those folks can join the session and help with the closing.
so in order to purchase the franchise or whatever it is from your company, what kind of training do they have to recognize when an older person is voluntarily participating or when a notary, and that's the challenge. You could have an elderly person totally full of capacity and capable and desiring to to participate, but is not computer savvy. But at the same time, you could also have an elderly person who's not got capacity, can't navigate the system, and is reliant on evil nephews. So what happens at the corporate level? I mean, what are you doing with your notaries? Anything special about that? You can't see the whole thing like you could in person.
So right now, when it comes to bringing a notary to the closing session, we're basically utilizing a vendor that has a trained panel that's familiar with a 50-state panel that's familiar with closing instructions that are coming from lenders. So we would expect those protocols to be provided by those vendors that we're partnering with. From a technology standpoint, what we're really providing is training that's based around navigating our system, not with like notary interaction with consumers.
Yeah, can you just explain to me the difference you're thinking of when somebody is in a remote session versus when somebody is live in a paper closing?
So if you take your great aunt into the bank, and she needs to sign something, if she has dementia and you're telling her, okay, this is the line, sign right here, that's a little more obvious to the notary. If you have remote notarization and you have a person, let's say the first person has capacity, but grandma's not computer savvy, so you say, click right here, grandma. That's one thing, but if you, my mom could have total ability and I still have to help her navigate this system. But if we were at a bank, she didn't know where to sign on her line because that's something she's familiar with. And so the difficulty for remote notarization is, when you have an older person, they may need assistance and have capacity, but they also may not have capacity and someone could be leading them through. And it's difficult to differentiate. What is that? Is that lack of capacity or is that lack of computer sophistication? And that's
I get your point, and I think that the exact same thing a notary would do in person in that instance, I think, is ask questions. Hey, what's going on? Explain to me the situation that's occurring. I think that exact same type of questioning would take place from the notary in the remote session. I think you would question the surroundings, question what's happening, what they're seeing happening, to make sure what they're doing is legitimate. And I think that is,
and they're like sound mind and body to like basically understand the documents and understand what they're agreeing to.
Right.
Like if so I would lean towards saying that a person has to have a base level of computer knowledge in order to participate in a remote online notarization using a web-based app. Basically, when you're kind of like, today what's happening is consumers are basically being pre-qualified for remote online notarization. The lender is basically asking, okay, do you have a computer? Do you have a smartphone? Do you have an internet connection? And there's a pre-test that's going on to basically ensure that all of that hardware and that the ability to navigate is pre-established before bringing them into this experience.
Yeah.
So in that case of like the 90-year-old great aunt, I wouldn't say she'd be the best candidate for this. However, if we're talking about like an in-person e-closing, that might be a possibility. Or at the end of the day, you might be looking at a traditional paper closing. It really depends on the comfort with the lender and the title underwriter with the idea of someone of that capacity engaging in an electronic closing.
Good question. Great question. Thank you.
I just have a quick question. If the notary were to cancel the session because they were uncomfortable thinking the other person didn't have capacity, is there a record of that?
So basically, when we go through the audit log, you would see that essentially like the closing was canceled. When we do follow-up with notaries, we basically do record that, all right, a closing was canceled. What was really the reason why?
Yeah, so we create an audit trail, and on that audit trail, we would show that the closing is canceled.
Well, hold on. When you say the audit trail shows that the closing was canceled, what happens to the talking heads recording, and who has control of that?
So the recording right now is under control by basically like our system. However, the notary gets an opportunity to download a copy of that video. And they also have the opportunity to obtain a copy of that video via our portal.
Okay.
Do you have something?
Yeah, I'm trying not to do a system comparison, so I'll be quick here. But so in other solutions, there's the ability for the notary journal is automatically generated whether or not it is complete or not. The notary at the end has to insert why it wasn't completed, what happened. There's a note space. And then perhaps let's say it's us, we have only employee notaries that are fully trained regularly, and then they would also have that log in our system. And then if they left, they get a copy of all of their videos and all of their journals. And we keep what we are required to keep by state law.
Okay, thank
It
you.
could be similar to, like, in today's world, we've had one when I was an underwriter where the closing was canceled because the daughter was physically taking the mom's hand and signing the documents in front of the notary. So he canceled it and walked away, and obviously when the closing doesn't happen, that notary has to tell the title company, the lender has to find out, and there's an explanation why, because they want to make sure the notary's not screwing up their closing, things like that. So there will be a conversation, a record, a follow-up, and then in this case, you at least have the talking heads video too, so now you have someone else who can impartially see what really happened. Was it the notary just maybe not understanding that they're not computer savvy, or was it really an issue that we need to dig further on and then set up another closing?
Another equipment kind of question. The talking head video, the record, what kind of format is that saved in, and how long is it saved?
It's an MP4 file, and right now it's saved for 10 years.
Okay, great, thank you. Other questions?
All right.
I think we're good to move along.
All right.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and complete this closing. And basically this pop-up just reminds our notary that once you click on yes, the audio-video communication with the client will cease. So it's basically a prompt for them to wrap up their conversation with the client. Once I click yes, the recording of the talking heads on the left side of the screen will end, and basically we'll start like security wrapping all of the documents that you saw us go through. So right now, tamper seals are being applied to the documents individually to basically kind of seal those signatures, and then there's going to be a tamper seal applied around the package as a whole. At the same time, the electronic note is being sent to the lender's e-vault, and the lender is getting a notification from the vault provider that, hey, there's a new note sitting in your vault. So there's basically now we're into the post-signing screens from the notary's point of view. You can see here that the notary has an opportunity to download the audio-video recording. And as we go on to the second screen, this is the journal information that the notary can take down to add to either their electronic or paper journal. So we see the date of the notarial act, the type of transaction they participated in, the information about the signer, type of ID would appear here, and then the ID verification methods here. And then finally, at the end of this notary journal information, you see the documents and the type of notarial act that took place and a date and timestamp. So what we're going to do right now is basically stop my screen share to flip back to Nick so you can see the post-signing experience from the consumer's point of view.
I think we do have one question.
Oh, yep.
I was wondering if there's a way to print out both the original document before you get going and also the document after everything's been signed and notarized.
So are you basically saying to print out the original document, so the unsigned package?
Yeah.
And then,
yeah.
wait. So sorry, purposefully today, because of that promissory note, the note is not printable. Our lenders basically don't want to have an electronic copy of a note and a digital copy of a note floating around.
So, but what you'll see here is that, and hopefully you guys can see my screen now, is that I've hit download and completed signer package. I am now able to pull up my signer package, and I can do whatever I want with the signer package. So I can save it and print it if I wanted. Obviously, to handle the note thing, we put a watermark copy over the note. It's not the original note, but essentially this is the package with all the signatures applied. And then what Jonathan was referring to that I want to show you guys was the audit trail at the end of the document, which showed everything that happened within our closing today. So it showed literally every single step of the transaction, from your hardware check to your signatures to everything you've done within the closing. So this, in conjunction with the talking head, we think paints a real good picture of exactly what happened and the timelines of everything that occurred.
Okay, so we have the audit trail here. What is generated for recording with the maybe the county clerk or recorder in Oregon?
So basically, if the jurisdiction accepts e-recording, the title provider or settlement agent can basically send any documents that need to be recorded via e-recording provider.
Yeah, well, as a solution provider, what we're doing is we're sending the package back to the settlement agent, and the settlement agent would take care of the recording of it.
To point out, and I know we're looking at Rulona 2018, Section 14A, there is the language about recording for paper out. That would be nice if not every recorder is e-recording.
Right. That's the purpose of my question is what's coming out here?
So at the end of typically, and I don't want to speak on behalf of Nexus certainly, but at the end you're going to have a closing package, and you can either, should be individual docs. So if there's an individual Campers Field doc that needs to go to the county recorder, it can be shipped off to that county recorder if it's e-recordable. If not, as long as we go 14A route, you can print out that copy and then have a notary oversee the printing out and certify that it's a copy of that exact document that came out of that package, and then submit that to the county recorder.
Okay. Any questions in the room or on the telephone?
Great answer, Renee. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, well, thanks very much. We certainly appreciate that. It's helpful to understand where the state of technology is.
Absolutely. We appreciate the time, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else in the room or on the phone have any questions for our folks who put on the demonstration? All right, I think we're good. Thank you, Nick.
All right. Thanks, Andy. Thanks, Liz. See everybody.
Thanks. Okay, so at least from my standpoint, it certainly explains the safeguarding kind of steps that are helpful here for this kind of legislation. I guess we want to, well, let's see. We've got an update on reciprocity, so maybe we can talk about that issue.
So I know there's a couple folks on the phone. I know Liz also did a little bit of research, and I appreciate that. And I know there's at least Tim, I know, did some work. Actually, I think two Tims actually on the phone. All the Tims may have an answer as well. So we had questions that came up in our last meeting about, and Heather had some specifically, and I think some others did, about concerns about if there was misconduct in the process. That was one of the questions. And there was a subpoena that came from an Oregon court for testimony or documents that came from a notary located in another state. Would those subpoenas be able to be accepted, I guess, enforced, in another state? And then there were other questions about reciprocity throughout this whole process based off notary misconduct, error, things like that. So Liz, since you're in the room, do you want to start talking about what you found, or?
Yeah, and Tim on the phone, you're welcome to jump in if you need to. So it wouldn't be possible for Oregon court to enforce a subpoena in another state for a different notary because
Would or would not?
Would not.
Okay.
The North Carolina notary is going to be held to North Carolina notary commissioning law from a So Oregon would not be able to enforce their own issues or, for court documents or anything in an issue with the real estate court. So but that issue also exists in today's world where if I'm living in North Carolina, closing on my home in Oregon before I move, I use a North Carolina notary on the paper world, you'd have the same issue if there was a mistake or anything. So what we think is ideal is if there is more of a working group within the agencies in each state, because if Oregon has an issue with that North Carolina notary, North Carolina should know to make sure that if they need to look into that issue or if they have other complaints, they know how far this issue goes.
Okay.
Heather, we're talking about reciprocity and subpoena enforcement, that type of thing. And Liz's answer kind of begged a question from my standpoint. If the Talking Heads video, at least from what I understand, it is able to be downloaded by the notary. So that in your example, that would be a North Carolina notary. But also it is kept at the provider, at least
Not all providers, I believe, keep them, and I think a lot of times the title company wants a copy of it as well. So the subpoena could go to the title company or the provider, which may be different, probably have to better.
Well, I would say in practical, like in actuality, we do receive subpoenas, and act on it as a vendor. So what does that mean, sir? So it means if we get a subpoena and it's valid, we will provide. Privacy policy in terms of follow the order.
So as long as the provider does retain a copy for their own records, and as long as, or the title company has a copy for their records, you would be able to reach them. You will not be able to reach the individual notary.
Okay.
So, but you can reach the vendor, in theory, you can reach the vendor.
The vendor keeps things, not every vendor does.
So as a title company or who may be looking to do online notarization, that might be something into is, does my provider retain a copy as well, or will I get a copy in the transaction? Because if you, just to make sure you want one, or, however you want to take it.
Do you know if any states require the vendor to retain? Like by administrative rules?
So most of the
business here?
Most of what the states are doing is they will allow the notary to have a custodian act on their behalf. So then once that custodian, so the custodian is the vendor, we will be registered. So that goes through 14A doesn't go into that much detail, but then once the rules come out, there's a registration process, and you know the vendors are out in that sphere.
Do you know if any states have something like administrative rules that say in order to be a vendor for Oregon, registered in Oregon, you must do the following?
Yeah, so there are different variations of the regulations that are coming out right now. We only have Texas, Virginia, Nevada, now Tennessee to look at, as well as we have Ohio, hopefully Vermont, and the other states that will have some draft regulations, not draft, but actual legislation to look at. But they are few, they're not so specific because they want to be technology neutral, but there are some requirements that are.
They can also the visual standards, which is you have to have at least 5 questions you have to answer. Each is incorrect. You can only take it twice in 24 hours. Those items are on there, as well as to be a registered vendor, you have to go through this process of approval.
I think I talked it all about the mortgage industry standards organization, and they're good about that. Okay, their standards. The biggest was
Sorry, yeah, that's what
they came up with. It was this work group of basically title agents, title underwriters, mortgage lenders, vendors like myself, where we sat in after a NAS, the National Association of Secretary of State meeting, and asked them to go back and come up with some standards that most of the regulations are being formed around at the time. Because that's where you get to the detail, and typically, I'm not sure if in Oregon it's easier to change the law or the regulation as I'm reading it, because they did the time.
I'd say the regulation, but it,
You know, our legislature is theoretical, really needs every
yeah.
But I kind of went down the rabbit hole there, but I just wanted to make sure.
No, it's really helpful, because as we're thinking about solving, looking at the 50,000 foot level, it's good to know that, okay, other states are adopting regulations. We don't want to sit and create a whole new set of regulations when some of the work might already have been done. And so A, we need to be sensitive to what are Oregon's needs, and B, after we're sensitive to Oregon's needs, how much do we modify what might be happening nationwide? Because sometimes the more that you tinker with stuff, the harder it is for people to comply, and then you end up with non-compliance, and that's.
Well, we also want to make it at least somewhat user-friendly. So if I need to be able to know where I'm going to be directing a court to send a subpoena or trying to register a subpoena request, let's say in North Dakota, when really I should be sending it to a Utah court because that's where the recording is. We want to be able to figure out where we're looking at.
Right.
And I don't know if there's a kind of a database or it's part of the user agreements or what it might be for someone who has to try to unwind a transaction to really get to the documents and get to the information.
So when I just went to, I just Googled remote notary, and so I got notarize.com, I don't know. So when you click on, get more information, try it out, the first document that shows up, this shows me, it looks like a phone, a smartphone. I can get a power of attorney notarized from a smartphone. So when I think about that, I think that that's great when I have, 28-year-olds going off to backpack through Asia for mom and dad. But then I think about how that can go wrong. And so what I'm interested in regulating is preventative or record keeping tools to help those people who might be exploited, because it's hard for them to say no, if they don't know what they're doing, or, there's a variety of circumstances. And then after helping those people, if the result occurs anyway.
Well, let's take Heather's example there.
Yeah.
If
you want to see it on your own computer, if you go to www.notarize.com/business, I'm on that page.
And, we're talking about a power of attorney. It may be a durable power or whatever it might be, but if there is a question about the authenticity of a document that was created that way by, somebody in the San Francisco airport before they got on a plane to go to Tibet, where do I serve a subpoena or make a request for whatever?
So, you're going to validate one through the verification portal. We do have a verification portal set up. That's kind of unique to us, but that was the one thing in doing hundreds of thousands of transactions. People want to be able to validate, and that is usually, it's great, they can go to the system, they've got a special PIN number, they can validate that that actually occurred, here's some basic information. Now, if you wanted to see actual copies of the video, but you weren't party to it, because we can't, obviously,
Right.
get information out there.
Understood.
I think that's having, as part of the journal, and as part of the audit log, the name of the vendor, and how you can contact them. I will tell you typically how people are, and not that we're getting tons of subpoenas, it's far and few between, but they look up the notary, and the notary is identified notarized as their vendor. They can contact the Secretary of State. There should be a list that's publicly available. Again, I'm not sure if Oregon, if you've got the funds or technology to ensure you've got a list, but active, here's the vendors they use, and then you know who to reach out to. And it's something that the notary should have to keep up on. These vendors leave as they're no longer commissioned.
From Secretary of State perspective, is that something in terms of it's feasible in Oregon? But
It's possible, it's definitely, there would be a lot of technology. There would be a lot, all the time that it would take. It would definitely, add more time.
And the alternative, what I would do, and I was having a conversation with the website, is I just reach out to the Secretary of State and say, got this document, notary thing. Okay, tell me a little bit of information, as long as you're allowed to provide it as part of public records.
That's actually what happens. You call the Secretary of State's office, you have the notary's name and their commission number, and it gives you their contact information.
Yeah, we do have some of the information on our website now. It's a little bit different format, and it's just the active notary. So that part of it is be a little bit, and the trying to figure out how they would add more information to it or that type of thing. But also, I'm trying to remember. I don't think it includes. There is some stuff that it does not include. I think it's just basically telling, yes, this notary with this commission number is active. So,
I think you can still do the traditional route. Not every state has a very robust database publicly available, which I'm finding out slowly. So it's just the same route you would look. Right now, you have a document in front of you. You want to know who this notary is. It looks like it's electronically signed on it, and public secretary of state validate if this is a commission notary, and then ask a simple question of what technology providers it's registered with and reach out. I think that is also why states like Nevada require registration, not necessarily approval, but like a registration process so they know who's out there and what their systems are doing.
There's a lot of regulations that they require the provider to register with the Secretary of State's office, so that they do know who's out there. But then once the notary signs up to do remote online notarization, then they have to tell the SOS office where they've gone. You can sign up for multiple providers, and that way, if someone calls, the SOS office can say, these are the providers they're working with, and that can narrow your scope of who you need to call next, or what you need to do, or if there's an issue, then they know who they can reach out to for it.
Can I clarify what I think you just said? Sorry.
Yeah.
So I'm a notary in Oregon. Oregon adopts the remote notarization statute. If I want to register with either or both of your websites, I have to tell the Oregon Secretary of State notary office who I'm registered with, so that the Oregon Secretary of State knows where I've been doing business.
Okay. And then obviously it would have to be someone who's already registered with the office as well. That might be an issue that you're trying to sign up with Notarize, but Notarize is not signed up in their state, and then they may be teed off that Notarize might be doing something correct, or maybe the notary was confused, whatever. Well, sorry to you guys. You're right there.
But it makes sense that, so that I'm the lawyer and I want to call the Secretary of State in Oregon and I say, hey, I have a remote notarization from Bobby Smith, commission number 1234. Can you tell me what remote notary company he was with? And you could tell me, then in theory, I could subpoena you guys where you guys, because then I would have access to Bobby Smith or just
Does your database work like, is this another thing where you'd have to add additional fields to your database, or you might not know?
well, we would have to. Our database isn't, we don't include any of that in our database now. So this would definitely be something that we have to make adjustments for. But we do have, currently with electronic notarization, we do have a form that they have to complete. And they have to give us a sample of what they're using. They have to give us the information about which company they're using as part of their electronic notarization. So my thought is that this would be something similar to that. It'd be an application that they have to complete, saying, okay, now I'm already a notary, so that's separate. But now I want to do remote notarization. And here's my information, and then that would get approved. And we would have the documents showing that information.
I'm sorry, asking all the clarification. Did I understand that notaries in Oregon are already doing remote notarization?
Not electronic, they're doing electronic.
Electronic.
So that would be in person on the iPad or.
Okay.
Okay. And you have a really nice application. I use that to Secretary if you're looking for something for the round process. So you could do something very similar. And the nice thing about 14A is it does give you the ability
they essentially made the Rolona amendment to add remote notarization broad, because in
Right.
a lot of states it is easier to update the regulations as technology improves.
So, if, say, I register as an electronic, or ability to do notarization electronically and, assuming it goes forward, remote notarization, and I decide, yeah, I'm not going to do this after, 2 years, so I resign my notary commission. What is kept, or what could be kept in a database for former notaries?
I'd have to look and see what our retention schedule is for notarizations and if that would need to change, but we would have the information still. It's something we have a system where, because we have all documents, so we scan everything in and we have it all available. So we do have a system where we can go in and look up any documents that we have associated with a notary, whether they're current or not. So we do have it, paper form that we scan in so we can
Okay.
have it. So.
Any other questions from the phone or whatever?
Any questions on the phone?
All right. I guess we're now to Marissa to tell us where we are on potentially drafting something that could be submittable.
Well, I can draft anything.
Well, we know that.
So,
go ahead.
Chris, I'll let you, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No,
Well,
okay. What do you want to know?
Well, how soon could we get a draft of the Rolona amendments as proposed, and then we could potentially tinker with that if we see something that is something we want to go beyond just the proposed?
Yeah, sure. I can work that up for you. It doesn't seem like it would take very long to put it together, and make it comport with our form and style and everything. I'm on vacation for the next 2 weeks.
Okay, well,
but
that's good to know.
I can do it after that. Yeah, I can do it after that. If I could, probably have it to you, a week after that, sometime in August.
And frankly, looking at my schedule, we're likely going to do a September meeting next.
Okay, yeah. So if I got it to you sometime in August, then people could take a look and be ready to talk about it at the September meeting.
And this is, I'm looking at folks and on the phone in the room who have been through this process in other states. What we're looking at that we need language for, my understanding is sections 14A. There are other sections that were this year were 4C and 20C. Would you also recommend drafting those sections as well, or is 14A really the only crucial piece of our work that we need right now? Just curious, but for Marissa's benefit. Anyone else on the phone? Any other sections from Rolona that would be critical to have a draft in the Oregon format for us to do our work?
Sorry.
Well, this is Tim Reiniger.
Yeah.
Interject. I'm just going through. So I was had the pleasure and honor of being on the ULC drafting committee as an ABA appointee. And so you're right. I would recommend all of these sections from the revised the amendment to Rolona.
So that was
so like 14A for sure. And I noticed. Have you all already discussed in a prior meeting that section 20 is actually very key as well, about giving recognition to tangible copies of electronic evidence records.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of folks that sounds counterintuitive, but that has been very much advocated and needed for the use case of electronic recording of property records, because not all counties have been suited up to be able to do electronic recording of all that. And so to be able to have some counties do electronic recording and others being able to accept a tangible copy has been very important. So I don't know if you've all discussed that, but certainly I don't recall the complete context of the existing Oregon statutes, but certainly Section 20 would also be important.
And I know, Tim, I'm wondering, Section 4C was also part of the 2018 amendment. I'm curious, do you think that's a section that we should also take a look at?
Yeah, I'm just scrolling down now to remind myself.
That's the certifying a tangible copy is an accurate copy of the electronic record.
Yes, that was, yes, that went hand in hand with the last point I was making. So when the committee was trying to effectuate these different things, yes, that 4C was seen as a needed addition as well.
Okay. So Marisa, that's in line with the 3 sections that I sent to you on Friday.
Okay. Sounds good. And
So,
then I can work those up and make sure that they fit with everything else we have.
so are there any areas that we want to depart from the Rolona proposed amendment? Hearing a great silence.
Well, I don't know that I've had, I've looked at it. You have to be able to put the words on the page together with the practice, so I'm not sure that I'm able to answer that wasting my time.
Well, if you had druthers, if you will, of areas that you'd like to see something more than is here.
So the only part that when I was looking at it that I have specific recollection is in section, I'll tell you, I have a little note on it right now. In section 14A, then I'm scrolling down. 5. Maybe C, it's on page 35 of our decision work. It says 35 on the PDF, and it's actually 31 at the bottom of the page. There's a laundry list about, and it commences, a notary public located in this state may perform a notarial act using communication technology for a remotely located individual if A, 1, the notary public Cat A has personal knowledge of the identity, B, has satisfactory evidence of the identity of the remotely located individual by oath, or C, has obtained satisfactory evidence. If you look at our statute, and then it says the notary is reasonably able to confirm that the record is the same. If you look at our statute, it also says that the person, there's that condition on notarization about the person's capacity.
What's the citation for the ORS on that?
Last internet case reconnecting, attempting reconnection to. So. This is a statute.
It's 194.245.2.
Thank you.
Actually, yeah.
And that, can you read that? I think that that's in Oregon, in some states, the statute is drafted so that the
notary can refuse to notarize. In other states, it's drafted so that the notary is prohibited from
May
the
refuse.
performer.
And it's 1A, I was kind of supposed to, 1A, so a notarial officer
Yeah.
may refuse to perform a notarial act if the officer is not satisfied that the individual executing the record is competent or has the capacity to execute the record.
Yeah.
And so when I was looking at that what had my attention was, we had briefly talked about modifying that piece of the Oregon statute instead of authorizing them to refuse to notarize, to prohibiting them from notarizing and reasonable cause to believe, which is how many other states have moved, including Florida. So if we were to do that, as we go through 14A in the new legislation, would that section have to include the same conceptual idea about capacity?
Marisa, from a drafting perspective, is there a way that we can incorporate that, it seems like the group has a consensus that we want that, everyone in the room. Is there a way that in the initial drafting, it would make sense for you to incorporate that? The language, to change the language that's in 194?
Yeah, sure, why not? Yeah.
It's like 194.235, personal appearance required, that's basically saying if you personally in front of me, so to do Ron, you have to amend that as well.
Okay.
You'll have a few edits in there to make sure it's coherent.
Right. And that's, as we go through, and once we get the draft, what we usually do in the commission projects is we'll go through line by line. And that's the part we can make sure that we've done those checks.
If I may interject, this is Tim Reiniger.
Yeah, Tim.
Certainly, this is a very important point. This came up in some of the ULC committee meetings, discussions. As I recall, Oregon already has the ULONA enacted from a few years ago. If it already enacted it in its entirety, the Section 8 is where it was placed in terms of it, as the prior speaker mentioned, under the authority to refuse to perform the notarial act. That's where it was covered. So the notarial officer may refuse to perform a notarial act if the officer is not satisfied that the individual executing the record is competent or has the capacity to execute and so forth. So it may be, as you look through, I don't know offhand if Oregon, when it enacted ULONA, kind of left that out, or maybe if it's already in, it may be that.
It actually appears that Section 8 is actually the exact same language as ORS 194-245, just at a very quick look.
So it's the permissive versus what
that's
other
correct.
states are going to have gone to prohibit. And that's the, I know that we talked about it previously.
I was thinking too on that one, I had made a note that changing the word may to shall, so that it says, or something like that.
There's, we can, and I'll pull the states that I looked at that actually changed that language, because there's that movement prohibiting, I think it's reasonable cause to believe. Because you don't want to put notaries in the spot of determining capacity, but you also want them to know they're prohibited if they have reasons to believe the person not capable of understanding the transaction.
It helps the notary too. They're in a position of having to tell somebody that they're not going to be able to do it, well, by law, statute. And it gives them an out.
I'd also like to know if there is any case law or regulatory history across the country about, what these changes might do. And we may not have enough time to see stuff through appellate stuff, but we'll see.
Is the speaker on the phone since he was on the national committee?
Tim Reiniger.
Tim, are you aware of any national cases or the legislative history? I mean, that would be great to look at those questions.
It is. It turns out, in my opinion, this probably would be the most complicated aspect of the notary's role, that by far. There were even people from JPL and Caltech and stuff would say that dealing with the human mind is more complicated than anything they do. So it's, when I would live down there, but there is, I'll send it to Sandy for distribution. There's a very good law review article that was written along these lines, and at that time is probably, I don't know, 10 or 15 years old, but surprisingly, very few states required the notary to positively determine mental competence or capacity, and because of the difficulties and all that. But that law review article cites a lot of the cases at that time, a great basis, foundation to further pursue this research for sure.
Well, that'd be helpful to at least be informed of the information out there.
We
Sure.
need to know that information.
Thanks, Tim.
Because when we're going to be asked, as we are, when we're going to be asked, we need to say, we've done our research, this is what the research found. And we have to keep in mind what the judges are seeing, and in every elder abuse case I've ever been involved in, which is a ton, it's a no-brainer. Grandma was absolutely incapable. I mean, these are not gray cases. These are black and white, and that's what these judges are concerned about. They see so much of the black and white.
Okay.
When the horse is out of the barn or the money's gone, that's what they're going to do.
Sure. Any other areas that, if we had our druthers, what we would?
One thing I did want to mention, I thought I had something, but Florida, it says specifically prohibits whenever something forming a notarization, if the signer appears unable to understand the nature of the document. Also, Massachusetts, Mississippi, and New Mexico have similar.
Okay. Great.
So what we can do is we can bring those examples, Florida, Massachusetts. You said Florida, Massachusetts, New Mexico. What was the fourth one?
Yeah, this
Mississippi.
one has Massachusetts,
Okay.
Florida, Massachusetts, Mississippi, and New Mexico.
So I could bring those examples of language once we have the language drafted by Marisa. I can bring those examples and we can see how it'll fit within Oregon law.
So I'm not hearing any other areas where we might want to tinker with language.
At least right now.
So this is Tim Reiniger again. Just to point out something very tangential to all of this, but I've observed that in many of the states, one of the things that ULONA did, the ULC and RULONA, was to change the reference to the notary seal to a stamp for various reasons. And I know a lot of the states that have enacted, probably litigation attorneys or others, drafting counsel looked at that and realized that there's the evidence codes and a lot of other legacy laws still reference official seals. And so to remove any possible confusion, and some confusion did pop up in Maryland, for example, they'll often put in where there's a definition of the official stamp or notary stamp, they'll put in a phrase to the effect that this includes any reference or requirement for an official seal. So that's just kind of a cleanup thing to kind of make litigation attorneys happy and some of the court purposes, just to consider. But it may not be an issue in Oregon, I'd go into the statutes.
Well, I'm sure that is an issue because, black shoe polish is hard to come by anymore. Stamp.
Just looking through RS 194, stamp appears 24 times, seal only appears once. So I think we may have already made that change.
Okay. Great. Okay. Anything else that we
definitely stamp? Yeah.
Anything else that we want to talk about? We might want to preload our discussion about Marissa's draft.
If Sandy, if you can send me if you have a list of the changes you that we just talked about, that if you can send me that in writing, that would be helpful to me.
When I get back to the office, probably on Thursday or Friday, I'll get you that full list.
Heather?
Sounds great.
Do we ever do drafts of OARs that accompany legislation, or is that something entirely out of our hands?
I think that's all we do is refer that to the agency. Will go and do their thing and draft up enabling regulations.
We could always put in our report, or, I mean, I remember on the probate group, yeah, we provided some recommendations that could assist in getting that work done. And we could certainly put that in our official report, and hopefully that'd be helpful to the Secretary of State.
We've had Secretary of State or other agencies reach out to us as well, just for feedback on anything.
Okay.
It's nice to get like a provider's opinion, but obviously it's also.
Do you guys ever provide through the rulemaking process? Does the Law Commission ever provide formal feedback on rulemaking?
Well, we've done, so Mark, in your experience, have we ever done that?
Not that I can recall that we've done any suggested, testimony.
The one recent thing we did is on the probate group, there was a long discussion about forms.
Yeah.
And while we didn't include, and actually a mock form was actually put together by members of the group. And while we didn't put that in the statute, we did forward that to the Department of Justice, specifically to the Chief Justice Office as a recommendation. That's certainly the type of process we could use. So if there are members, if we have time, and we actually may in this group, and people want to take on those tasks to assist as at least to create, and working, since we have so many national best standards folks here, which is a really wonderful thing for this group, if we want to put together some language that's going to assist Secretary of State, it's certainly within the purview of the Law Commission to do that. It wouldn't be in the legislation, but certainly.
And also, I mean, if you're doing rulemaking, I'm assuming you've got your operative date and your effective date, and you wouldn't start drafting until everything passes, et cetera.
Yeah.
The reason I'm so in favor of that, as I just said as a side comment, the people that we're seeing and the examples and information that we're hearing are the gold standard.
Mm-hmm.
So I have limited concerns about that. I'm worried about Joe Bob, who needs some extra cash and created himself a website, notarized for Granny or us, or whatever. And so I just want to make sure while we have the participation of the gold standard, that we keep it there.
Mm-hmm.
Keep that.
Yeah. We certainly, that's our goal.
And then what helps, I think, too, is the providers have to go out and get the KVA provider as well as the credential analysis provider, and they don't want to be associated with something like that as well. So if you're
the KB,
the knowledge-based authentication questions, so those are provided by a third party as well. So you have to have involvement with other companies who have their own gold standard to keep and maintain. So they're not going to want to be involved in a shady, backdoor business.
Because on-site visits, a lot of documentation to prove
A lot of
your
security
business.
measures, and they don't want their company to be taken down with.
Okay.
So that's like LexisNexis.
Yeah.
These are big providers.
Yeah,
they want to make sure that the company they're providing the 3 questions through is running appropriately. So they won't do business with you guys unless they're confident that the way you do business is code.
And then I can't make my own company work if I can't meet the regulations that they have to have, the knowledge-based authentication questions, the credential analysis and all that to even perform remote notarization. So there's that safety as well as the regulations that SLS office is going to provide, that you've got 2 different parties in the transaction verifying that this is a legitimate provider who should be doing the right thing.
Yeah. Well, we want those protections if we can put them in the system.
I'm just curious and we have a lot of constituencies on the phone, but also from the state. Is there any, as we start the drafting process, does anyone anticipate any other state agencies, any other constituencies that may not be, that we haven't had at the table so far who we might want to invite as we start drafting?
Have you invited anyone to report on these documents?
We had a representative from the clerks.
Yeah.
Like statewide property records association. I know there's a national, and most states are finding there's something, because that's one area where they find out there's electronic. So you already do have electronic signatures, where they tend to freak out, like, oh my God, I don't have money to update my system, and then kind of bring.
That would be a county issue. Do we have a county?
Yeah, we've had a couple. I don't know if we have. Is anyone on the phone today from any of the county recorders? There's a couple members we have who are county recorders. They've been able to participate sporadically, but we could reach out to the recorder's office from maybe some of the larger counties just to make sure.
AOC?
Yeah.
Anybody from the state commission?
How about DCBS? they have some, at least tangential jurisdiction over some of the stuff.
We had a lot of, we had a very good.
Yeah.
Work meeting, it's just the presentations that have not been.
We certainly have the banks, we have the credit unions, we have, but you're right, real estate folks would be really helpful, and recorders.
Which I love, here's why I
Yeah.
say this. I want those outreachy kind of people, because they're the very people who come in and complain after we've spent countless volunteer hours figuring out that it's safe and it works. They're the very people who come in and complain. They don't go to the effort of figuring out what we're doing.
But what I would say is we're going to have a little bit of time now between now and the next meeting. So if anyone has different agencies or offices, specific people that we'd like to invite as we move forward with drafting, let me know. And I'll make those connections and invite folks to come to the meetings. One of the nice parts for those of you who've not been a part of the commission process is all our meetings are public. Everyone's welcome. Even if you're not a member of the group, you still can have full input. So just send me names, send me organizations you think we should have representatives, and we'll get those folks there as we do the formal drafting.
Heather or Sam, do you have a probate judge that might be interested?
Yeah. So I think that Sandy and I can tell you that we have really made a concerted and direct effort to a particular group of probate judges to be engaged on the probate modernization work. They came at the beginning, then they don't come. But then we went to a specific effort to show them why something was good, and they hadn't heard all of that conversation. And so we invited them specifically, but they came in with their minds so made up that we got nowhere. And all of these really fabulous lawyers and other judicial people, including the judge out of Clark County, Washington, in charge of probate, had their time wasted. So I'm trying to figure out, is there a more strategic way to do that? And I was just thinking to myself, maybe the way to strategically do that is to take one of these ladies into one of those, or into the lion's den, where I occasionally I'm served as lunch. I don't know. Is there a way to be strategic and respectful of their concerns and educate them at their convenience and not at the convenience of the committee?
So at our first meeting, we did discuss potentially doing a demonstration for a group of judges.
I mean, put me in the hot seat, but I'm happy to do it. Great.
And I'd be happy to facilitate the technology. So whenever, whether that be.
Yeah, Nick and Jonathan are happy to hop on. I can do this.
And reach out to judges throughout the state.
Yeah, there's a particular and I know that I couldn't get an appointment with you. I don't know about maybe Sandy. Judge Holland, I don't have a real.
Oh yeah, in Lane County. We can try.
But surely Judge Cobb and Judge Burton come.
Well, Judge Cobb was working with us throughout the whole process, so she's got a great relationship with the commission.
Yeah, Judge Cobb comes.
Yeah.
It's Judge Burton.
Yeah.
Judge Holland. So I can get us into Burton, but I don't know about.
Okay. I think it's something we should do.
Yeah, we can, because I do think that is the one thing, is you think you have everyone involved, and then in a few states, it's taking 3 or 4 years.
Yep.
4 different sessions, because as you get to the end, then someone's like, wait, I wasn't paying attention.
Right. Yeah, we know that.
Maybe we should do that as a front end mark.
Well, I want to get to a product and then be able to say why this product is a better wrench or whatever it might be. And then, maybe it's 1 or 2 judges that are influential in the circuit judge association saying, yeah, we've looked at this from an evidentiary standpoint, it works. And it's better than what we've got right now, because all we've got is a piece of paper with a stamp on it, and we don't know anything. So.
Maybe Brian Marsh from.
Oh, he's great. Yeah. He's in.
Multnomah.
He's in Multnomah now? That's right.
Did he leave the AG's office?
He's in JFCPD now.
Oh, I'm from
Oh, he's been all over the place.
He's now the, Oregon Judicial Department
Yeah,
Chair of Probate and Family Law, right?
well,
Have you guys spoken to the AG at all? I mean, she's very open to technology. Didn't we have someone from the AG's office here earlier?
yeah, we did originally.
Yeah.
Folks have kind of dropped off.
How many people originally? Yeah.
Well, they're all on my list. We'll work on getting those folks here.
Cause I mean, like, I went to the Democratic Attorney General conference, and she, was really, really nice, she's very open about it. Her obviously big issue is going to be the data security and data privacy issues that she's working on. So as long as we get in front of her that this is already meeting all your standards and already has all the lockdown information that you need, I think she'll.
Well, I'll see Erin Knott from her office tomorrow.
That's not good. Oh, you think that?
I'm sorry?
During the
No, but we have a commission meeting tomorrow too. Tomorrow's busy.
You guys need help with that too, I'm more than welcome to.
Okay.
Wherever you guys need me, just let us know.
Thank you.
Show up with a computer and a smile on the face and some knowledge.
No, it's a good time for us to prepare for the questions that are going to come up. Because once we get the draft in, what we'll do is we'll make sure the language is something that's going to stand up, and then but the good news is we do have some time. We're also going to have to figure out how to entice likely a committee we've talked about to actually bring this up in the short session.
Are you expecting a fiscal?
I don't.
Okay, I just, in the middle of the session, that's how it's always held.
Yeah, if we can avoid that, it'd be great. But we also want to get our dog and pony show ready to rock and roll.
All right.
Okay. Anything else for the good of the order?
Anyone on the phone?
All set. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. And I did get your email. Thank you.
And Sandy will send around calendars for.
Yeah, we're looking at. I'm about to go out on parental leave for a little while. Our second in about 10 days. So we're looking forward to that. But mid-September is what I'm looking at. It'll give a nice summer break to the end of this group. Then we'll have the drafting set, and we'll move forward from there. That still leaves us plenty of time.
And so we won't do a dog and pony show in September at September Ledge Day.
No.
We'll do something in December.
Yeah, let's plan on December Ledge Days. That's a great call. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks all for your participation in the demonstrations.
Also, I want two other things for members of this work group. I'll send out the scheduling. This entire meeting has been recorded, including the demonstration with our questions. So if anyone on this group wants to show that to any colleagues, the demonstration today and the last demonstration, actually, they're all recorded. Let me know. I can send an easy link that they can watch on video. So that's just one thing. The other thing, and this is for folks who are members of the bar, who are members of this work group, there might be an opportunity for folks to get CLE credit for your participation in this work group. If you remember the Oregon Bar, we did receive that go-ahead from the Oregon State Bar for a different OLC work group, and I think that there's a good chance that we could get it for work on this work group as well. So just want to, for those of you who are here on the phone, is everyone open to me looking at that possibility?
Well, I'm directing, to the extent I have any power at all, Sandy, to seek that out.
So I will work with Jade from the bar and see if we can get that approved, but I have pretty strong confidence that we can.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Great.
Thank you.